Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm Senior Editor Denton Davidson here with J.A. Bayona, Director of Society of the Snow, Spain's entry for Best International Feature at the 96th Academy Awards. J.A., you've done a lot in your career, including big Hollywood pictures and television shows, some of our favorite horror movies. But here you're going back to Spanish language, representing your country at the Oscars. What does it mean to be selected as Spain's representative and telling, Spain's story of cinema?
To me, it was great because I've been like for almost 10 years, 8 years away from home. I shot um, a film in Hollywood and then I did a TV show in New Zealand, the Lord of the Rings TV show. So go back home to with my people to shoot a movie there was fantastic. Like I always try to do my films there with my people. Every time I work in Hollywood, I bring my people with me, the cinematographer, the editors, my producer partner, Elena Tienza. She's been with me since The Orphanage. And to me, it's been like a whole journey. Like starting in Spain, I did my three first movies in Spain. I did The Orphanage, Impossible, and A Monster Calls. I established my voice. So that was something that I wanted to show the world. This is who I am. And then I moved to Hollywood. It was a very interesting experience. But then doing this film after so many years, because we've been trying to do this film for a long time now, but we did it now. I think this is where I really like to be. Like in this position, and going back to my people, with my crew, with my team in my country, and being selected for the Oscars was extraordinary. To have the love of your colleagues was fantastic.
And this story is about the rugby team whose plane crashes in the Andes in 1972. It's a story I'd heard about. Many of us are familiar with some of the gruesome details, the salacious headlines that we read. But you really made this a human story in a way I've never seen it. You gave heart to these men and what they went through in a way I was not familiar with. What made you want to tell this story at this time?
Well, I was so surprised when I read Pablo Bierci's book because at the opposite of the other books that were written on the same story, Pablo Bierci's book was written 40 years, almost 40 years after the plane crash. And it was the desire of the survivors to gather together again and tell the story because they couldn't recognize themselves in the story that was in the minds of the people in the outside. They couldn't recognize their story in that story. So they wanted to tell the story again. And it's very interesting because that book is a much more introspective book. So it's not about the fact, it's about what they went through, the feelings. It's has almost like a philosophical aspect. And I was so shocked about the human aspect of the book. I found myself reading the book crying for the people dying in that plane, which is the first time that happened to me knowing about this story. And then I met the survivors and it was even better, like reading and hearing about them, about the story, meeting them and talking about the story with them was extraordinary. And the more I dig into the story, the more I wanted to be involved, because really I think that the scope of this story in terms of the spiritual, the human side, the philosophical, as I said, is much more bigger than what I thought it was.
And it's a drama, but there's still a lot of brilliant technical elements in the film. Can you talk about some of those more difficult things that you did film, such as, talk about the plane crash and how we see all of the seats sliding into each other, and also just the landscape. Where was this filmed to make it look like you were in the middle of the mountains? I mean, it feels like we're right there.
That's exactly what we wanted to bring the audience into that plane, to go through the experience, to feel empathy, and by sharing the experience, understand what they did. And I think that's something that you can do with film. Like this empathy is such a powerful tool that we recently showed a movie to the families of the survivors and the families of the victims, and some of them, after 50 years, really understood what they went through. After 50 years, it's a whole life. And watching the film, They started to talk about something that was like a taboo for 50 years. They started to gather together again, to hug each other. It was so powerful. And it's because we put the audience into that play, and we put the audience into that experience and make them feel what they went through.
If you look at the photos of the actual scene and what's on your film, it looks identical. I mean, were you meticulous? I mean, were you out there like moving every little thing? Because I couldn't tell the difference, honestly.
Yeah, I was obsessed with those pictures. I remember the book Alive when I was a kid, and I remember those pictures. They were the only pictures they took in the plane, you know. But yeah, I mean, it's because I knew the story, I knew the facts, so I was looking more for the details, for the gestures. So basically, what I did is to prepare the actors as give them all the information, all the details, in order to go through the whole experience with them in chronological order, with our cameras ready, like if we were going to shoot a documentary. And I was looking for those details. I became very obsessive in that sense, because to me, it was less about the fact that I knew and more about the gestures, the performances, and the details, the meaningful details that will reveal the whole story, you know, especially when you need to reduce 72 days in 2 hours and a half. You really need to get to the essence to find what is really the story about.
And you cast primarily unknown actors from Uruguay and Argentina. How did you go about finding these? I mean, they're brilliant for not having a lot of experience. They really pull in the audience with their emotion. How did you find all of these young men and go through that process?
Well, we did a long audition, 6 months of auditions in a very difficult time because it was during the pandemic. But then we did the final auditions in Montevideo. Most of them were coming from Argentina during the pandemic, so they had to stay 1 week doing quarantine before the auditions and 1 week more to go back to Argentina. So imagine like a group of almost like 30 young guys in a hotel for 2 weeks. I mean, after the auditions, all of them were already friends. So, and then we did rehearsals for 2 months, which is a luxury nowadays, to spend 7 weeks doing rehearsals, going throughout all the story. And then I put them in contact with the survivors, and they spent time together. So they were so well fitted, so they had so much information that the rest of the shoot was to give them the context, you know, like going through the experience in similar conditions. We shot in the snow, in real locations, going through the isolation, the cold. They follow a very strict diet also. So it was beautiful to see how the chemistry that I read, the camaraderie that I read in the book was the chemistry on the screen. That they created a similar society of the snow, our own society of the snow, during the film.
What made you decide to tell this through mostly Numa's point of view? Because I loved that. I thought that was a really impactful thing for me to watch his full story unfold. What made you decide this is the character we want to sort of see through his lens?
I think when I was doing all those interviews with the survivors, I realized that they spent 50 years telling their story, but there were some people who never had the chance to tell the story, which were the ones that stay in the mountains. And then I thought that the essence of the story is to understand that if you survive, I survive. That I will give you everything I have to allow, if in case of necessary, to allow you to go back home. And in that sense, I thought that would be a very beautiful idea to make the audience follow the same experience. So they start the film with a character, and that character allowed us to experience the ending through other characters. And it was the perfect metaphor to tell what was the sacrifice in the mountain, to tell the essence of the story, which was to understand that you and I are the same.
And just beautiful lessons and questions that they have throughout the film of faith and humanity. And I love one of the last lines. It's just take care of each other. And I think that's a message that we can all take away from this film.
It's beautiful, yeah. Take care of each other and keep telling the story, because at the end, this is what we do as filmmakers. We tell stories to find meaning of the meaning of life, to find the meaning of reality. And that's the most important thing. This is what the survivors wanted the first time they gather again to tell a new book. And this is what we are doing with the film. We are keep telling the people what they went through. We are telling the story so people will understand what was it.
Well, J.A. Bayona, thanks for joining our panel today. Good luck with the awards season and congratulations on Society of the Snow.
Thank you so much. Thank you.